my channel and you haven't heard very much about me, I just want to tell you guys, I love the first Alien movie by Ridley Scott. Great, horrifying, original. I think it's one of the scariest movies ever made. I think it's probably like in my top 5 horror films of all time. After like 5 or 6 films, Ridley Scott has finally come back. And he has made a movie that kind of follows the storyline of Alien, yet it kind of also doesn't. And he did it with Prometheus, which I think was an okay movie. I didn't think it was that great or that horrible, but I'm just kind of like straight down the middle of it. And now we are here with Ridley Scott's new Alien movie, Alien Covenant. Now, have you heard the famous Alien tagline called, "In space, nobody can hear you scream"? Well, that's exactly what I did when I was watching Alien Covenant. I mean, seriously, this movie is like one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen this year. Now, the basic premise of this movie is that there are a group of scientists aboard a ship called the Covenant, and they have to take aboard like these 2,000 other survivors to like another planet where there's like life and stuff. However, they wake up from hypersleep too early because of a space accident that happened aboard, and they see that the accident that was happening to them came from a distant planet that's not too far from them. And yes, like everyone predicted when they saw this movie, the planet is not what they think it is. It's actually a place filled with aliens that want to kill you. So it's up to these crew members to remain alive in a fight for survival against the onslaught of aliens. Now, before we talk about how disappointingly terrible this movie is, let's talk about the stuff that I really do like. And first and foremost, Ridley Scott's visual style. It's a very beautiful looking movie. For the most part, the cinematography was very good, you know, with like wide shots and scopes of terrain and the planet. And I also thought the score was really good too. I mean, it kind of harkened back to like the original Alien movies. And you know, there are also some performances that are kind of very admirable to see. Catherine Waterston was fine in the movie, as she was in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but I think her entire point of her character is just for Ridley Scott to bring back the whole Ellen Ripley, Elizabeth Shaw kind of archetype. You know, to bring back the tough leading female protagonist. However, like, the biggest standouts of the whole movie is Michael Fassbender and, surprisingly enough, Danny McBride. This is like one of those few times where you see like a comedic actor working for like comedies actually be in a serious movie, and he actually acquits himself admirably here. Alright, let's talk about the bad stuff. I mean, when I came into this movie, I mean, like, the first 5 minutes of this movie, it was like getting very interesting. I mean, you had Michael Fassbender as David, you know, talking to like Weyland-Yutani about like the responsibilities and resolutions and consequences of creation, because I think this movie is kind of a sequel to Prometheus. And then after that, the movie just went straight downhill. Actually, I think the moment the human characters were introduced was kind of the point where the movie went straight downhill. I mean, most of the dialogue that people kind of spat out other than exposition, it's just not good at all. And speaking of not good at all, the characters. Seriously, if these people ever been in the Academy of How to Be a Great Movie Scientist University, they probably might have just repeated a grade. I mean, these characters were that stupid. I mean, the entire point of their journey is to take like 2,000 passengers aboard the Covenant into like a distant planet that's known for having like wonderful life. They've been researching on it, they've been gathering facts about whether it's good for humans or not. And you know that planet that caused like the space accident, you know, which basically allowed the crew members to wake up from hypersleep too early and caused like one of the crew members to die? Yeah, let's go to that planet. Let's see what's going on there. And these characters do like the dumbest things possible. Every decision they make is the worst one. Hey, let's not land on like this area where there's like a bunch of vegetation over there and grass where it's very comfortable to land on. Yeah, let's land in the water. Because logic. Because apparently that's what people in NASA would do. That's what actual scientists would do. Let's fly a few miles or even 100,000 miles into this eye of a giant tornado thunderstorm instead of going in this area where there's like clearly sunlight and rainbows. Yeah, let's not go over there. Let's go over here. And even worst of all, when they land in this planet, they go in there without any sort of helmets. I mean, even though the characters in Prometheus were extremely stupid, they at least knew when to put on a spacesuit when landing into an alien-inhabited planet. And of course, like other horror movies, they have to follow like this whole split-up routine. I was just like thinking the whole time, is this an Alien movie or is this an episode from Scooby-Doo? And yes, these characters don't even have time to get developed. I mean, even the marketing clips have better character development than this movie does. And the worst part about that, those clips that you see on YouTube with like all the marketing and stuff of like characters getting developed, you know, sharing banter back and forth, that's not in the movie. So what you basically get are meaningless, desultory characters that you don't even know their names to, you don't even know whose couple is who, and most likely you don't even care who lives or dies. And you know how in Alien, where it's like completely creepy, it had a very suspenseful sense of dread and atmosphere, and like how the scares and even the jump scares were effective? Yeah, that's not in here anymore. It's just not. The reason why that is because most of the horror aspect of the entire thing doesn't really work because of like how terribly executed it is. And I think it's mainly because of the unconvincing CGI in this. The best CGI in the entire movie, the facehuggers. They moved in a way that we've never seen before and they actually looked really good. And there are some cases where they actually used practical effects for them. The xenomorphs, on the other hand, you know, one of the most famous movie monsters of all time. I mean, they look worse than the lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man. And you know how I say, like, for the most part, the cinematography looks good? You know how it's, like, well shot and all that? There are points where the movie gets really dark. I mean, not like in terms of themes or anything like that, but no, seriously. There are points where this movie is just shot in the dark, and it's so bleak and murky. Now that we got most of those out of the way, let's talk about the spoilers. So if you want to skip to my final thoughts in the movie and just want to hear what I really thought about it and you want to hear about my rating, just skip to this time code right here. Because the rest of this review is spoiler filled, so you have been warned. You know how Alien Covenant is kind of like a sequel to Prometheus? One of my biggest problems with this movie is that it doesn't really establish or answer any of the questions that its sequel left off. Like, you know how in the ending of Prometheus, it left off with Elizabeth Shaw and David both alive, and they set off to go find the rest of the engineers, trying to find out what is their purpose, why do they want to attack Earth, and unleash this weapon of mass destruction on us. And that movie was leaving off on a high note. It's like, what is the engineer's point? Why do they want to destroy us all with like this weapon of mass destruction, like the black goo? In Alien Covenant, all those stuff that you've been really wanting to look forward to and find out the answers for are completely gone. Anything you had any interest in Prometheus with are completely gone, including the main character. Elizabeth Shaw in this movie is not even in here. The only time she's ever mentioned is either through exposition or pictures that the crew of the Covenant see of her. But other than that, she's gone. What makes it worse is that she gets killed off screen. Like, the crew of the Covenant were like, wait a minute, what happened to Shaw? And then David, you know, the other android Michael Fassbender plays in Prometheus, he's like, oh, she died in a crash, off screen. It's just like, why? Why did you have to do that? And you know all those engineers that they have been trying to look for? Yeah, that's gone out the window. Because instead, David goes to this peaceful, like, race of engineers and, like, the space jockeys, and he basically kills all of them using the weapons of mass destruction that the engineers were trying to use on Earth. And you're kind of asking, don't you want to ask questions first before you do it? Shouldn't you have asked them about why they were going to use it and learn about their culture and stuff before you kill them? And here's the thing that I really want to get into. Here's the thing that I really wanted to talk about throughout this whole movie. They ruin the entire point of the alien. And how they ruin it is through a backstory and explanation from David. And the reason why that is that David is the creator of the xenomorphs. I thought for a moment that these little, like, protomorphs or neomorphs, like, would naturally evolve. Because they found, like, this very strong host in, like, this engineer or space jockey. And then they would learn and take time to find ways to evolve, and fortunately grow up to become the ultimate life form known as the xenomorph. But no! David creates them. And you're like, how is he doing this? Yeah, of course he has, like, this black goo, you know, how, like, you know, to create the alien life form. But he's, like, putting in, like, this bowl and, like, mixing, like, all these herbs and spices. I'm like, how? How are you doing this? Oh my god, it's so bad. And, like, what about the queen? And that's been, like, giving birth to, like, all these face huggers that have been trying to latch onto a human being and growing into, like, these chest bursters that evolve into aliens. And, like, the chest bursters in this movie take, like, 10 seconds to evolve. They take 10 seconds to evolve into, like, fully grown aliens. And here's the problem. The fact that the aliens have a backstory completely ruins the entire point of them. The aliens don't need a backstory. The fact that they have the backstory completely makes them less compelling. And it basically ruins any kind of tension you can have to this creature. The reason why the aliens were so horrifying is because you had no idea where they came from. You didn't know what their life cycle is like. You didn't know if they had a queen or not, or if there was more of them. You didn't know how they could adapt in the dark. You didn't know anything about them. And these aliens basically embodied, like, our fear of the unknown. And you know what? This movie basically transforms them from being like the embodiments of our fears of outer space to just another movie monster. We don't need a backstory to Alien, much like we don't need a backstory to Freddy, to Jason, to Leatherface, to Michael Myers, to the Crawlers in The Descent. Those things don't even need a backstory because they're perfect in their own right. They're scary as the way they are. Any other backstory or explanation or exposition completely ruins the entire point of them. Yeah, that's just the kind of thing that really makes me mad. Overall, guys, you know how like Prometheus was like one step backwards for the series? Alien Covenant is like 100 steps more. While the visual style and the score was there and there were some performances that were actually very good, the rest of the characters you don't care about, the CGI is not really that good, the horror aspect that you wanted is completely gone, the cinematography is kind of murky, and the fact that they decided to add a backstory to the aliens makes me completely mad. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, the movie throws in a you gotta be kidding me surprise ending. It's one of those twists that you know exactly where it's going. Guys, Alien Covenant is just a dull, disappointing mess of a film. And sadly enough, Alien Covenant earns a 1.5 out of 5. Guys, there's like 8 of these things, and only 2 of them are masterpieces. I think we're done. Like, no more Alien movies. Okay, that's not true. I'll wait for the Neil Blomkamp Alien movie, but other than that, no more Alien movies. Otherwise, it might just become a trend like the horror movie genre. Alright guys, that is my review of Alien Covenant. Comment below, let me know what you thought about the movie. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. And also, be sure to subscribe for more. My name is Luke Nukem, and you have been blown away.